Welcome to Nuanced Beauty, because the world is nuanced and we think that's beautiful. Hi guys, welcome back to Nuanced Beauty. This week I am bringing another interview episode with Christina. Hi Christina.
Hi, good morning.
It's so weird saying my own name.
I
know. Christina is a small breeder of miniature AKC Long-Haired Dachshunds. Is Dachshunds the technical name?
Well, Dachshund would be
Dachshund's the technical name.
Yeah.
Okay. Long-haired dachshunds. We met at a luncheon and I shared the intent of the podcast being a space where we explore the nuance of any topic. And as a dog breeder, we immediately saw the potential for an episode. If you have been listening for some time, you might recall Bill and I recording this one episode about pets, but it focused much more on the blurred lines of pet ownership or fur babies and real babies. But today I want to pick Christina's mind and expand on what exactly a dog breeder does. And explore some of the assumptions and maybe the poor misconceptions that people may hold when it comes to dog breeding. So with that, Christina, welcome. Is there anything that you could add to my intro to give us a better picture of who you are and what you do or what you love?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks so much for having me. I'm the owner of Dashing Doxies. I breed, like you said, long-haired miniature dachshunds. I would say 9 years ago, we were a small apartment family. So when we decided we wanted our first pet, we did like most people, went to the shelters, Humane Society. But we found very quickly that it's very hard to find a small breed dog.
Oh, from the shelter.
Yeah.
Those probably go fast.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so even with like some of the rescues, looking into the smaller ones, price points were almost the same as going to like a breeder.
Wow.
And at that time, we weren't really in the financial capability to spend thousands of dollars on a purebred dog. So we opted to go to Craigslist. I found two small breeds. One was a purebred dachshund and one was a Chihuahua mix. And so with the mindset of, purebred must mean that it's a better dog, this is how we ended up with the dachshund. I did not know anything about dachshunds before this. So
I just have to interject and say I feel like ending up with a dachshund was a better call than a Chihuahua. I'm sorry, Chihuahua lovers out there. I'm just gonna call it like I see it.
Well, and I was also a nanny. And so before making the decision and researching about the two, there were a lot of things about Chihuahuas that weren't appealing,
as favorable,
taking care of small children. So so we ended up with our first dachshund, which was a short-haired, and we just fell in love with their quirky little personalities. They're like little people inside of these dog bodies, and that was it. That's kind of, the rest is history.
Okay. So that was 9 years ago. You adopted your pure breed. And then later on, you guys decided that you were going to start breeding?
So I would say when he was about a year old, so dachshunds, they're not singular dogs. They either do better with a friend, another dog friend, or just someone that's home a lot. And I used to do some pet sitting for friends, and they would come over, and he just absolutely loved when the other dogs were there. Mm-hmm. So we decided to get another one for him to have a buddy. And just kind of a story with that. It's not the happiest of stories, but we were supposed to pick one up and that fell through. So a couple of days later, we were out at a festival and we saw this woman with two what looked to be like dachshunds, but they had all this hair.
Okay.
And I had never seen a long-haired dachshund before. And I walked up to the woman and was like, "What? Are those dachshunds?" She's like, "Yeah, they are. They're long hair." I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're beautiful." And so she connected me with her breeder that she got them from, and I reached out to this woman, and that's how I ended up getting my second dachshund. And 6 months later, I ended up getting my third, and just becoming friends with this breeder. And I'm just a very inquisitive person. I like to ask questions. So I kind of was very like full in from the time that the third one, the mom got
Came
pregnant.
To your house. Okay.
And I just kind of went through and asked questions, because in my mind, things were starting to, I guess, swirl like, I might want to have a litter one
of puppies.
day.
Okay.
And so, because we just love them. And the long hair, it's honestly, they were just even more sweet and calm than even my short hair that we had. And
okay.
So yeah, so that's kind of what sparked the interest, and then there, that went into me becoming a breeder. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So I must confess here that I am a cat person. My family grew up and owned a couple dogs in different seasons, but ultimately I must say that I love cats. But in the spirit of Nuanced Beauty, leaning into curiosity and the things that I know practically nothing about, dog breeding, can you give me and the listener an idea of like what it takes to be a dog breeder?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this question because, well, number one, kind of to go back to my history, the thought in my mind, which is the thought in most people's mind, and I get this question from my followers, is people love their dogs so much that they want to have a litter of puppies. They want to be able to keep a puppy from their dog that they love so much, right? And that was my initial thought with becoming a breeder. Fast forward 8 years later, and that's absolutely the wrong reason to breed. Not every dog is breeding quality. Not every dog should be bred. A lot of people believe that because a dog is purebred and a dog is AKC, it means that they're breeding quality. If I rewind back to my first dachshund I got, the short hair that we talked about on Craigslist, he was AKC. He was a beautiful dog, structurally sound to the AKC standards. However,
and, real quick, AKC means?
That's the American Kennel Club.
Okay. And so when you adopt a puppy, you get like a certificate?
Yep. You get a certificate that says the puppy is basically purebred.
And do you like register like future puppies with the AKC organization?
So as a breeder, you would. As a pet owner buying the purebred dog, for a lot of pet owners, that's just a paper. I give them the registrations that they can turn around and re-register the dog into their name versus my name.
Okay.
Some will, some won't, because there is a fee that is a small fee that's entitled or, incurred with that. So yeah, some will just have the papers and hold the papers. Some will say, no, I want to register this dog as mine.
Okay.
If you're not breeding, you're not showing.
There's not really, maybe not a need.
Yeah. If you are a breeder though, however, we do register every puppy every dog that I require for breeding. I will re-register from the original breeder, and I will register every single one of my litters.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome. Back to Dash. That was the name of our first short haired. Even though he was purebred and registered, he was a Craigslist baby. And the people who were breeding the parents probably should not have been breeding the parents. About 2 years old, he started developing some issues.
Health issues?
Not health, more aggression type issues.
Behavioral. Okay.
And in hindsight, when we did go to visit him, the mom was a little bit like that. So probably not the best temperament to be bringing forth in puppies. So I say that because not all dog is of breeding quality.
Okay.
So wrong way to start breeding is I want to have a litter of puppies. The first thing you want to know is number one, what is the history and lines of the dog? What is their temperament? What is the parents like? What was the grandparents like? Are they sweet? Are they calm? Are they good with children? What is their structure like? Are they to the AKC standards? Meaning, are they built the way that they need to be built?
The characteristics of that
the way that they're
breed.
Supposed to look.
Okay.
And a lot of times you can, get a mentor or someone who maybe is a show breeder that can help analyze your dog with pictures to let you know that health testing. Is there anything in the lines that in the past, IVDD, hip dysplasia, patella issues, heart issues, eye issues, things like that? Is there anything that have come down in those lines? So if you're going to start breeding, your first thing would be to find a reputable breeder with good quality dogs.
Okay.
Ask questions, see pictures, look at the grandparents, the offspring, and kind of go from there and then get a mentor.
Okay.
I have 2 mentors, both who have been breeding for over 10 years that have been working with me now for 8 years. Get a mentor, research. There's so many dachshund breeding groups through Facebook, work with your vet. There's so much resource out there. Get an idea of what you need to look for first in your breeding stock. After that, obviously you would wait till your dogs are appropriate age, breed them, and then
standby to standby.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. You mentioned on your Instagram page that you are a small breeder. So I imagine that there might be different categories, or like, is that just kind of a casual word to describe a small breeder?
Yeah, so I don't know that there's necessarily categories. Those of us who are only producing like 2 to 4 litters a year would consider ourselves small breeders. Some people also use the term hobby breeders.
Okay.
I don't know that I like the word hobby so much because we're not out doing
Sounds
this
like
just for
you're
fun,
not,
right?
Yeah, passionate
there's a
or
lot that goes
professional
into it. So, I mean, you do have your larger kennels, people who, like, for instance, I breed in my home. My dogs live in my home. They live with us on a daily basis. They interact with us as our pets. First and foremost, that's what they are. They're our pets. They have their own bedroom. When we have a litter, the litter is born in my bedroom and they stay in there till they're 5 to 6 weeks old, and then they move into a bigger pen in another room in my house. And so then you have some breeders who may be larger facilities that may have like the outdoor kennels. They can have built, heated, aired, all that stuff. In some states, I can't speak to Florida because I'm not at that level. But in some states you do have a license to be a breeder. And I think that is based on how many litters that you're producing. And I know that like AKC can come out and inspect and, issue a license and make sure that you're up to par. But I can't really speak to that because I'm not in that category.
Okay. Interesting. So this kind of goes into the idea of maybe misconceptions or such. I have a faint memory from years ago, and it was maybe like on the Oprah show where they were talking about puppy mills and these large facilities that were being exposed to unethical practices. And they made a claim that most pet stores in malls across America were supplied from these large facilities that were not the best practices. First off, can you provide maybe some more context or fill in the gaps of what I'm missing, or if I'm making an incorrect statement? And is this a serious problem today, or was it dramatized? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely think that pet stores across America should be shut down. There's actually a group here where we live locally that has been trying to get the pet store shut down for a amount of years, because most of the dogs that they are getting their dogs to sell from are coming from puppy brokers and puppy mills. And a lot of times, they're breeding multiple different breeds there. So they're not probably getting the best care that they should. They're taking, and this is, I have obviously no proof or evidence of this, but this is just kind of widely known among the breeder community that a lot of times they're pulling these puppies before they're 8 weeks old from their moms. They're weaning them just to get them out because of, the pet stores need them. And so you're getting a dog that they're saying is possibly 2 to 3 weeks older than what the puppy really is. The paperwork, they're supposed to be registered, but a lot of times that's doctored. It's just, and then the biggest thing is I personally have had 2 friends that have bought from pet stores before in the past, and a lot of times they get these puppies home and they're so sick. And 2 of them have passed. Because if you've ever been to a pet store, there's no health concerns. They just let you come in and visit with the puppies, and unbeknownst to a lot of people, parvo and things like that can kill dogs can be brought in on your shoes. So if they're just letting people come in and sit and play with the puppies, not knowing, if they've been around animals that haven't been vaccinated, or, if they've been walking in their neighborhood and pick something up on their shoes, then these puppies are getting sick. And, and a lot of times when you buy from them, they come with a special that they get their stuff free, their vaccines and stuff free, as long as you take them to one of their
facility or vets.
And so to me, that's a little sketchy too, because, if the puppy is sick, I mean, their vets are working with them, and it just kind of seems like this whole monopoly
conflict of interest, maybe
something unethical going on. And obviously there are puppy mills out there. There are backyard breeders out there, and that is a huge concern. And it gives us reputable breeders a bad name that are trying to do it right. And then you run into the people who are the hoarders. They just have the pets and they're not fixing them. And then that's the ones that you kind of see that are getting busted on the TV, and they're coming in their comments,
like the pet
like
service Yeah, that's kind of a shame, like the whole concept of puppy mills, because a lot of the time, well, maybe not in today, like the past 5 years, people don't trust big organizations as much as they used to. people generally had a respect for a large organization as reputable and established and long-standing, because if you weren't established and reputable, you wouldn't be where you're at. And I think obviously there's a lot of just questioning organizations and their functions. And as you're speaking about puppy mills, and in my own very minimal amount of information, is it sounds like it's a pretty compromised industry. And it, like you said, there's just all these various small things where it's not for the better of the pet. It's kind of for the production value. And this is like where when you get big and you have how much does the money matter, and how much do my practices matter versus how much am I doing something that I love? And
if you're a reputable breeder,
and
you're breeding for quality and you're breeding to better the breed, why do you need to sell to a puppy store?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's kind of the question. I think that's the big question.
I gotcha. Along these lines, as a dog breeder, are there any other misconceptions or assumptions that you have heard in the past that leave you feeling like completely misunderstood?
Yeah, my biggest thing is the whole adopt, don't shop notion.
Oh, okay.
The
catchphrase.
Exactly. I don't know necessarily that I would use the word misconception as much as I would say
just
unrealistic expectations.
Yeah. Okay.
Not every family is set up to be able to go and adopt a dog. When you go to the shelters to adopt a dog, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for adoption. Those dogs need home. We need to give homes to the animals that were unresponsibly brought into this world, right?
Yeah.
And I love people who do that. And that's what I did in the past before I started doing this. That was my as I said, our first.
That's how you began.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But not every family is set up. You have dogs in the shelters that, how long have they been there? You don't know where they came from. What kind of life did they live before they got there? Are they mixed breeds? What are the health concerns with that? I use two different scenarios. You have a family with young children and you have an elderly family, and that's a lot of responsibility, just taking care of children. Now add in a dog that may have some triggers or may have some health issues. And that's just not something that's going to be feasible for that family to manage, right? Or you have, again, with the elderly people, you might have a lonely old lady whose husband passed away and now she's left with her dog and the dog's getting sick and she may not be able to drive and she may have a helper who comes to help her, and it's too much to deal with, I just think that that's unrealistic. But I also feel like there's people out there who they have a breed that they love. For instance, if someone loves a dachshund, they want a purebred dachshund. They want to know where it's coming from. They want to know that it's going to be healthy, that it's been raised and taken care of someone that loved it, that socialized it with children, socialized it with other dogs. And they just may want to have peace of mind that their pet is going to live 16 to 20 years like it's supposed to. So
okay,
that's kind of my views on that, I would say.
I like that because I think it goes into the show and nuance that that adopt or shop is a very black and white opinion that kind of doesn't leave space for the nuance and the reality of the trade-offs and the benefits and the pros and cons, because there are pros for adopting from a shelter and there are cons for adopting that you pointed out. And likewise with a dog breeder, there are pros and cons, and you might get more insight on the dog and you might just have a better picture of their life thus far. Whereas adopting from a shelter, you might have a lot of variables that you're going to have to overcome and work harder in. But this is where, this is a both and. You could do both. You could adopt and you could shop.
Correct.
So let's just allow for both point of views without one person trying to take the high ground and act like adopting is better, or likewise. I don't want to hear a purebred person telling me that they're so much better because they got a purebred.
Correct.
Let's hold space for that.
And place the blame where the blame should be. The blame is on the
irresponsible pet
unethical
ownership.
Pet owners who are not having their dogs spayed or neutered.
Right. And then and it's I get it. Accidents happen too. But we could have due diligence in stewarding our pets well.
Right. Yeah. And back to what I was saying earlier with my first dachshund, I speak this out of experience, not out of, oh, I'm a, dog breeder and I just want to, plug the reputable dog breeders. I thought that when I bought this puppy at 8 weeks old, that was AKC and purebred, that, I'm going to have this dog that's just wonderful pet. And because he started developing the behavioral issues, and with me at the time, my job, I was a nanny, we had some problems. We would have to baby gate and keep them separate because he could be aggressive if he was scared. And, long story short, we actually ended up having to put him down because of the aggression, because it became worse.
Yeah.
It's just sad, and again, he came from, quote, a breeder.
Yeah.
But they were not reputable, ethical breeders breeding quality dogs that should have been bred.
Yeah. Like it doesn't solve all your problems.
And it was sad for us. That's how we fell in love with the breed, right? So ultimately it was a very hard choice, and it was a very sad thing for us to go through because we loved him. He was never bred. He was always just a pet, because I knew enough then, slowly becoming a breeder, that this temperament you don't breed. So he was fixed. And the biggest thing comes with it doesn't matter, if your dog's purebred or your dog's registered, it doesn't mean they're quality breeding. And that's the irresponsible people thinking that, and, oh, my dog's beautiful. My dog's, let me have a puppy.
And I love that insight too, because I think that insight gets to just the bigger responsibility of owning pets, period. And that, some of the, assumptions before we adopt, whatever. Before we bring a pet into our home, we might have a lily white take on how lovely this is going to be, and forget how much work it is, because the grass is greener, the thing that I don't have. So thanks for sharing that. My husband, Bill, had a question that it's kind of more a business logistics style question. About supply and demand. I'm sure you can't predict your inventory with puppy litters, but how does that play out? Like, are they just so in demand that you kind of have a wait list and you kind of take it from there?
So I do have a wait list. I've had a wait list for probably about 4 years now, of about a year.
Okay.
And whereas I don't really know how I think I would characterize the supply and demand, it really comes down to the client looking for a breeder and kind of perusing their business page or their website and just seeing what they like about that breeder.
Oh, okay.
I have a lot of repeat clients who come back to me, and word of mouth. So my reputation has just kind of been put out there. So that's why I per se will have a wait list.
Yeah.
As far as predicting, so I kind of can do that. Because with dogs, like humans, they have a cycle.
Okay.
And as the dog gets older, you kind of get a estimate of when they're going to cycle.
Okay.
So, for instance, a lot of females will go into heat every 7 to 8 months. So if I count 7 to 8 months from that first time, I know that, okay, she's probably going to cycle around this time. And then I can say, well, I have a planned litter here. So if someone contacts me and says, oh, I really like this litter of puppies you had here that were this color. I'd like to get on your wait list for that. Can you give me an idea? And I can say, well, she's due to cycle around this month. They're pregnant for 63 days. And then I keep my puppies till they're 10 weeks old.
Okay.
So I can give them kind of an idea of.
So you're able to forecast a bit.
Pretty much.
Given the experience behind you.
And then if it's, a repeat breeding versus a first time breeding, I can predict, well, these are the colors that she had. More than likely she's going to have this. But even if it is a first time breeding, knowing what they carry genetically, I can sort of predict that too. However, genetics is a funny thing, and I can never guarantee anything. I can only predict. So with that, it's pretty easy to be able to tell the client, this is, for instance, right now, I expect that I'm going to have 2 litters this summer. So the people who are contacting me, I can say, this is what I expect. I have 6 people on my waiting list right now. So depending how many puppies they have, you may or may not get one this round. Plus, people are always passing if we don't have something that they, a specific color, specific gender.
Okay.
Color and gender. That's when it gets a little tougher.
Okay.
But I can give them a sense of idea and then say, I don't think you'd get in on this round, but then this is the next time I will be having litters.
And just as a general question, like you mentioned, 6 to 7 months, is that particular for dachshund breed, or is that actually just like dogs in general?
I believe that it's dogs in general.
Okay.
I can't 100% say because there's such a difference between larger breed dogs and smaller breed dogs.
Okay.
Some of my dachshunds may cycle every 12 months. And then I've had dachshunds who have cycled every 4 to 6.
Oh, okay.
So it's just very
interesting,
kind of specific to them. Yeah. Kind of like us,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Would you mind talking to me a little bit about adoption pricing? Are there a lot of factors that kind of play into you making those decisions? Or do you kind of chat with other breeders to try and help you guide the pricing?
So initially, yes, when I first got started, I chatted with other breeders, kind of, see what they were selling their puppies as, and kind of you go from there. It's really obviously things as the cost of living goes up, as your vet prices go up, food, everything goes up every year. You have to adjust. In the beginning, I was very wet behind the ears and did not understand how much breeding costs you to put into it.
Okay.
If you're doing it the right way, correct way, it is not a cheap profession.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you kind of have to base it on what are you putting out to come in. You need to make something, or why are you doing this, right?
And to give someone maybe like, just to go into what you just kind of said, like there's some behind the scenes, and you mentioned like vet costs.
Yes.
And food costs.
Yes.
Are those your two biggies?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say my vet has gone up tremendously in the last couple of years post-COVID, as everything has. And so, whereas I consider myself a very reasonable priced breeder, I have probably maintained lower pricing than most of the breeders I know. Okay. And have actually gotten flack from breeders I know about that.
They're like, bring your prices up just a little so we don't look like we're...
But at the same time, you have to think competitively. So, I'm in Florida. There's a lot of other dachshund breeders in Florida. So you do have to kind of think of what's going to kind of guide people to choose you over someone else based on prices, but still at the same time, not just breaking even with what you're putting out. So, I do tend to, every year, I probably go up about $100 in my pricing just to adjust for everything, for all the cost, going up.
Basic cost of living or such.
Which I personally don't feel $100 is a lot to go up each year if you add everything up together of what's being raised that I have to put out.
Okay. Gotcha. Do you have concerns about people being poor pet owners? Are there red flags that you use to screen homes of those wanting to buy a pup from you?
Yeah, sure. So my process, what starts is from the first time someone inquires of me, I have an application that they have to fill out.
Okay.
My application will have questions on it like, how long will the puppy be kept home alone? Do you have any other pets? Have you ever given away a pet to a shelter? Have you ever given a pet back to a breeder? Things like that. Do you rent? Do you own? Do you have children? Because you want to make sure that their home is going to be, sufficient for a dachshund. Dachshunds, as I said earlier, they don't do very well being alone. They need a friend. They need someone that's home. They can typically deal with separation anxiety. Whereas a larger breed, like say a golden retriever,
does better with longer stretches.
They also can hold their, bladders longer. So if you have someone who works an 8-hour day, it might be better to get a bigger dog. If I see that on an application that someone, works an 8-hour day and the puppy's going to basically be home all day long, I'll probably deny them unless they preface to me, we have a pet sitter that will be coming in several times during the day to play with the puppy, take the puppy out. If they have nothing into play for that, I'll ask them about that. And if they're still like, well,
it should be fine, right?
Right. Then I'll probably deny that application.
Okay.
If they have other pets, I ask for reference checks and I do a vet reference check as well. So if they have other pets, I'll call their vets make sure they're up to date on all their things, as well as are they spayed or neutered.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, if they have another dachshund in the home or younger dog, if they have a male and they're wanting a female from me, I won't allow the female to go home unless the male is fixed, because I'm not trying to allow for uh-ohs and, you know, contribute to the pet population.
Yeah.
So then once they fill that application out, if everything looks good to me, then we set up to either do a Zoom call interview to go over it, or if they're here local to me, we would meet in person. We'd go over that. I kind of go over how my program works moving forward. And if they agree and they're approved, then they would set a deposit in order to get on my wait list.
Okay. And based on what you just said, are the majority of people local or within the state of Florida, or do you actually work with people outside of state and such?
Yeah. So the majority is going to be within Florida, but I have puppies all over the U.S. I have a puppy in Alaska, and I have a puppy that just went to Puerto Rico. As a matter of fact, today is her 1-year birthday for that litter. But I mean, I have them a lot in the tri-state. I do some delivering, but majority will say local to Florida, not necessarily local here,
like right here in
area,
the county, but in the state of Florida.
All over Florida, yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, the last question I had for you, a friend of mine was scammed on Facebook by a fake business that was claiming to sell pure breed puppies. And she only lost her down payment and had to get a new bank card. Thankfully, no further monetary damage was done. But as someone who's really in the business of selling puppies, do you have a general idea of like red flags that somebody should be aware of if they're going to be adopting a puppy and it's not local to them?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is if you're dealing with a reputable breeder, they're going to be vetting you as much as you're vetting them. So it's not going to just be a singular conversation of price. Oh, this puppy is this much. Send me money, right? A lot of times when they're asking for like a deposit, they're wanting you to either send it through some kind of money wiring company like MoneyGram or Western Union, or they're wanting people to do these like prepaid visas.
Okay.
So
that's
all they talk to about from the get-go, and they're not asking you questions, that's probably your first red flag. Sometimes with the conversations, a lot of these scam artists are from other countries, so a lot of times their language and
the way it's
typed out,
full
there's
sentence?
a barrier there, right? As well as if you go to their page and it's something very general like Dachshunds of Idaho or AKC Long-Haired Dachshunds, and most of us are going to have a kennel name. Okay. So if it's something very generic like that.
And is the kennel name like searchable on the AKC website or something like that?
That is actually a great question. Cool. I think if you are, so you can register your puppies with the AKC, but then you can also have a AKC marketplace account.
Oh, okay.
Which is what I have. However, I generally do so well through my Facebook business page that I
don't have to utilize
really had to do that yet.
Okay.
But I think that if I do utilize that, I believe that you can go and search Dashing Doxies. But I can't speak to that 100%.
Okay.
There are other breeding clubs like Good Dog and things like that people can go on and search for.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say, and let me preface this because this is a big misconception with that as far as people asking for deposits, as well as I'll have a lot of clients who, and I've seen this on breeder scam pages where people say, if a breeder will not let you come to see the puppy before you give them the deposit, they're not legit. That is an absolute misconception because we are people. We have families, right? We live in homes. If I don't know you and I've never spoken to you and you contact me, can I come see your puppies? And my puppies are 4 weeks old and they're barely even walking around. I'm not going to allow you to come to my house.
Okay. Yeah, like,
but if you want to get on my wait list, you have to pay a deposit. I am more than happy to give you my vet's information. You can check me out with my vet. Yeah. You can reach out to any of my past puppy parents to do reference checks. So there's ways around that if you want to know that I'm really legit. There's other ways, but there have been stories of people who have gone to breeders' houses and attacked them, have stolen all their puppies.
Oh my gosh.
It's just, this world is too dangerous. So that's probably, I think the biggest misconception is just with because we don't let you come see our puppies doesn't mean that we're a scammer, and it doesn't mean that, we're taking your money. For me, because I typically have a wait list, once the puppies have their shots at 7 weeks, I do family visits that next weekend. So I generally only will allow people who those are their puppies to come and visit them. And as I mentioned earlier, the health risks, you know, if you've been out like me when I first started searching for a dog and I was at the shelters and I was here and there, and then I went to the people's house with the Craigslist baby.
Yeah.
I could have come straight from the shelter there and I could have brought in any kind of diseases on my feet and my clothing and infected their entire household.
Yeah.
So, you know, when people are coming to my home, I have to be very aware of what they're bringing in. So, so there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just, if they don't let you see their puppies, they're not legit. So that's probably, I think, the biggest.
That's a good point. That there's a misconception. It's the pet deposit is like pet deposit before seeing a puppy is not. It does not qualify you as a scammer,
right?
But also, yes, scams do exist, and it sounds like if they're really quick and if they're not actually asking you many questions about who you are and like what you do and what you know, if they're not vetting you, if they're trying to move quickly, if they're using a handful of the money wire transfer, prepaid Visa things. Those might be the things that you should investigate further, take your time, maybe reach out to the AKC since you mentioned there is maybe some filings or potentially, like you said, you shared your vet information, like you're happy to share that with them to check you out.
Another good thing to ask if you're really worried is ask to do a video chat, Facebook, FaceTime, Zoom. Have the breeder talk to you personally, that's why I do that, because I want people to see, hey, I'm a real person. Yeah. You know, or like I said, I meet locally. If people are here local, like I'm a real person. Here's my contract. You know, here's your application that you sent to me. You can see that I printed it out. Yeah. I mean, there's just even I'll turn the video around. So that people can see the puppies that I'm posting pictures of. You can see that these pictures, because a lot of breeders also, if you're looking at pictures, we watermark our pictures. Oh, okay. And these scam artists try to steal your pictures, which is why breeders watermark. So if they're posting pictures, you're like, one of the things that goes around about the scammers that people will learn in breeding groups is they'll say, ask the breeder to take a picture of a sign that says your name next to the puppy. But people can superimpose pictures, right? Yeah. So I always say, if you see pictures on this breeder's website of this puppy, ask the breeder to video with you, turn the video around, pick the puppy up, show that this puppy is legit and they really have it. Yeah. It's just a matter of taking a time. If somebody won't do that with you, or maybe they can't do it right that minute. Yeah. They can schedule with you later on. If they're legit, willing to they're going to prove to you that they are legit.
Yeah. It sounds like it's not a rushed process, and there's some back and forth. So
it's not. It should not be a rushed process. Yeah. Like I have a wait list. I have no reason to rush people. It's for me, it's not about just selling puppies. It's about finding the best homes for my puppies. Yeah. And they can stay with me as long as they want until that's done, right?
They'll get plenty of love.
Exactly.
Well, Christina, thank you so much. I think we covered a lot of ground. I feel like I've learned some things today, and I hope that our audience has as well. If they're, considering adopting a pet, or they already have a pet, or they know nothing about dogs like myself, I learned something today. With that, before we close out, would you like to share how people could connect with you?
Sure. So I'm actually in the process of having a website created. So I will be linking that to my social media pages once that's done. But you can find me on Facebook under Dashing Doxies. It's a group. Unfortunately, I had a Facebook business page and it was hacked a couple months ago. So I lost 8 years of work. So I am regrowing with this group. It's been a trial, but we're getting there by the grace of God. So if they just go to the search Dashing Doxies and hit groups, you should be able to find me through that. And then as well as on Instagram, it's _ Dashing Doxies _
Okay. I will, I'll add those to the show notes.
And I can share you my email address as well. So
perfect. Christina, it's been lovely having you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and in the spirit of nuance, I hope you found something that you could agree with and you could disagree with, and still choose to lean in. Give us a follow, rating, and review, and consider sharing this episode with a friend to continue the dialogue and help us grow. Until next time.